All right. I think that we are live on Facebook, and I do a little chatting as I wait because Facebook loads. Aha. And then I have to close out of it, and I always forget. And then we get that talking over, but I did it right this time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I have the privilege of working with so many talented writers who also happen to be amazing people at Harbor Editions, both the staff and the artists and the writers, everyone. And the authors reading tonight are no exception to that. They're both talented and also have been just so kind and generous to me during this whole process. So I'm thrilled to welcome both of them tonight. I'm going to start with Shareen Murayama. She's reading from her chapbook, Hey Girl, Are You in the Experimental Group? And what made me so interested in Shareen's work is her bravery. She takes risks with line, with form, with punctuation, content. Every poem is new. Every page is a surprise. And we might say this collection is about identity, and certainly, some of her blurbers have said that, and I definitely agree. It is a collection about what it feels like to navigate the waters of this poet and this time. But for me, the collection will always be one of courage and beauty. Shareen writes, My mother calls from time to time from some other distant land and asks, How am I doing? And tells me, Your shoes have always held more water than mine. Sometimes we don't talk. We allow the birds to sing before and after nesting to anyone and no one. And I am so excited to welcome Shareen Murayama.
Oh, thanks, Allison. What a beautiful introduction. Okay. I'm so excited. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Shareen Murayama. I am a poet and an educator. I'm streaming live from the ceded lands of Hawaii, born in the Ahupua'a of Honolulu on the island of Oahu. For my reading, I'm going to alternate between first-person quotes from people who have lived or are living on the island with poems that are more representative of different groups or systems as we swirl in the complexities of colonization, diaspora, and assimilation. So some poems for you from Hey Girl, Are You in the Experimental Group? I'm going to frame it with the epigraph from Kathy Park Hong's Minor Feelings, a quote. When I hear the phrase, Asians are next in line to be white, I replace the word white with disappear. Asians are next in line to disappear. We are reputed to be so accomplished and so law-abiding. We will disappear in this country's amnesiac fog. From the point of view of a Spanish, German, Jewish male, age 28, group treatment. If you're not Asian, especially if you're not born here, there's a sense of, well, let's see you prove yourself if we decide to give you a chance kind of feeling you're up against. Sticks, stones, and words. A tourist jumped in Waikiki. Some words hurt more. The breakup, the in-laws, unemployment rate, than others. The morning after pill, the suicide, transience, the state with the least recorded hate crimes, the broken nose, the fractured cheekbone, the staples in his head, the begging, the money that fell from his pocket. From the point of view of a Caucasian Samoan male, age 43, group treatment. I'd identify with Caucasian first, mostly because of the language and culture during childhood, school, and parental preference. But that left me having to constantly explain my last name and why I don't speak Samoan. However, if you were asking me to fill out a scholarship application or some kind of social entitlement enrollment form, where not being a Caucasian results in preferential consideration or is otherwise a requirement, then the answer is Samoan. Pacific Pipeline for Honolulu. After Jamal May, the city shifts Pacific at sunset. Foreign shoppers with bags, hooked on arms, armed with entitlement, demeaning servers and housekeeping. I mean the way they jab at keeping our house, the economic myth of paradise, as in someone's version of heaven. You're not mortally dead, just spiritually broken. I mean, the visitors aren't to blame for breaking your organ, both leaf and root. Your origin and culture are plastic on postcards while everyone waits for the green flash. Tourism's the bottom line. You beg begrudges hooked on arms, armed with few choices so others can enter paradise in a snap, like a mother's back when her kid falls through the cracks. No, I don't mean crack like a punch in the face. I mean, she can't see the face of her boy, the illegal spaces behind bars. Instead, everyone turns the page and sings other hymns, drowns the cries of these brown bodies find in this fine, found land. From the point of view of a Jewish female, 50, group treatment. Local Caucasians face resistance, job ops, social or community integration from local Asians because of different cultural styles. Shogun Asian men don't like strong haole women. Asian women aren't straightforward. You have to talk in a high, sweet voice to get what you want and be very apologetic and appreciative for the amazing favor. Hey girl, are you in the experimental group? It must be fulfilling knowing whom to love. That one's calling in life is to guard and growl. John Wayne had a dog named Dog, a clever thing able to translate dog meaning attack from dog meaning get your ass over here, I'm leaving. What does it mean to name that which obeys their loved ones? They seduced a dog with food, washed the streets of Moscow out of its fur. They praised and encouraged her off to college, be a mother and have a career. I like to imagine they patted her head for good luck, scratched behind her ear, which she had learned to lean into. I like to imagine that when Laika had crossed that orbital finish line as the first dog in outer space, she remained ignorant of the words hypothermia, betrayal, dispensable. That the evening lights on the fading metal clicks were neighborhood doors swinging open, each threshold offering a handful of food, a gentle pat on her head. Good girl. You're such a good dog. And while we have complexities within our identities and systems that we struggle with, sometimes even on an individual basis, we struggle with systems within ourselves. And this poem is called the Wolf Poem. My dog fetches with the need of a middle child, a peacemaker between what's thrown and what my hands once held. The stick doesn't need to be lethal, just long enough to jaw all the dogs in the park. They're going nuts. I mistype. How is your wolf? I mean, wife. I never know how to receive both rain and sunlight in the same space. In the final quarter of a game, a Hail Mary pass is thrown and it's going up, it's coming down, it's rainbows. And the receiver's down at the bottom of the dog pile and they're going nuts because it's not a stick, but a 2-car garage and fancy appliances that sit pliantly on an island with its own power source. The refs bobs up and down looking for a sign of position. two kids or two dogs running, now screaming or laughing in the park. And she looks like she doesn't even notice me. When I hear woof, I see teeth kind of shredding. Someone is going to get eaten. Is it bad to want a thing just because it belongs to somebody else? On paper, I read X as mistake. I read X as in please pretend I'm not here, even though you can see me. But on a map, everyone knows that X is a go-to mark. My dog drops a stick at my feet. We're watching your hands. We wait for the next pass. Again, so this is my last poem, and mahalo nui loa once again to Harbor Editions team for making this dream, my first chapbook, come true. This poem is entitled Gameplay. Today, I was thinking how I minded my mother's devotion towards sumo grand champion Chiano Fuji. His weekend appearances, her standing appointments. 260 pounds of delts and pecs like a movie star, with added top knot fanned out like a ginkgo leaf, whether by yorikiri, frontal force out, or uwatenage, overarm throw. Her obsession stood lyrical. His opponent's girths yoked in the rings. And from downstairs, my dad winced at their victories. Sometimes what we're up against, we can't always see. I'm thinking of my parents and Chiano Fuji mid-lesson of Minecraft. My grandson says I'm supposed to strike and back away before the creeper explodes. Avoiding confrontation, I give him control. He's winning. Tsukidashi, frontal thrust out. Lock and load, no the wa. Throat thrust, then boom. He advances to the next level in this world. And the other one, I swear I oppose violence, but I want to break every pillager's crossbow, to sword every phantom to their green eyes bleed boxes, to wither any skeleton spawning over his 7-year-old body. Maybe we do learn by imitating others. Maybe we've learned to be our own victims, our own admirers, yokozunas. We are gods and creepers. What if every level in the sandbox is twisted, irreversible? Surely we can't turn off the rules. Surely we can find a way to start a new game. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I I love that you read that poem. It resonates, obviously, you know, having a pre-teenage child in the house. So it was so wonderful to finally hear you read. I get to introduce Kimberly Ann Priest next. She is reading from her chapbook, The Optimist Shelters in Place. Jeffrey Bean writes that her book is a deeply moving chapbook reminding us that COVID-19 is more than a pandemic of illness. It is a pandemic of loneliness too. For me, Kimberly's collection is her on the page. I didn't obviously know that at first when I accepted the book, but as I've grown to know her more, I've learned she's a person who feels deeply, who loves deeply, who wants connection. And this collection reveals all of that emotion. It often reads to me like a diary. It speaks to a need to mark time and to remember. Kimberly writes, each moment that slips by seems apocalyptic, but not.
I think I'm the host now because Allison just froze up for a minute. So I am going to share my screen and show you the cover of my book, because I'm super proud of this cover. I don't have the book in hand yet, so I'm super proud of this cover. Laura Page did the cover art, and I wanted to show it off because there's a little spider on that table, and you'll see that. I'm just going to go down that I dedicated the book to that spider. So one of the poems I'm going to read is going to feature the spider. So going back to the cover just a moment, so everybody can marvel at the Laura Page painting that is there. And then, and that painting is actually right above me here on the wall. I'm so grateful to her for doing that. And I have a plant with me because this book also, it features plants in abundance, because Allison just made me cry saying that I'm a person who feels deeply and longs for connection. I'm a very connecting human. And it was funny to hear Allison say that, because I'm like, ooh, I'm giving that vibe off in the world. Kimberly likes to, I like to talk. Okay, so I'm going to read 8 poems from the book. All of my chapbooks are actually continuous narratives. So my full manuscripts are not, but the chapbooks are all continuous narratives. And so this one, every poem starts "The Optimist" and then says something else. So the book is "The Optimist Shelters in Place." The woman who is me is the optimist. And just for context, I wrote this book at the beginning of the pandemic, like the very beginning. It came out in a rough draft within 2 weeks, and then I tweaked it because I was stunned, like everybody else, by what was happening in the world, and I needed to process my unique experience, which is not so unique. I think many of us are experiencing the things that the optimist experienced, but I needed to process it for myself. And I am a middle-aged divorced woman with 2 grown children who were not living with me. So I was alone in an apartment with my plants. And suddenly I felt like I was alone in my apartment with plants who all had names. So I had my family around me, but they don't talk back to me, which is unfortunate during a pandemic. So they are featured in the book, although not all the poems that I'm going to read from today will show that. And like I said, the book is dedicated to the spider because it was representative for me of just how small and vulnerable we all were, during this pandemic, and this little spider scurrying from one place to the other, is just trying to survive. So that will come across in the poem. So here we go. I don't need to give any more context than that. Each poem will speak for itself. I'm starting on page 20, so I'm starting in the middle of the book, and I'm going to read a series of 8. So the first one is titled, "The Optimist Takes Stock of Her Privilege." She has 22 cans of soup in the pantry. This will last her 22 days, so she writes a new shopping list. Not because she needs anything now. Listing is her habit. She has lists for what she wants in the house she will have in the future, types of dogs she prefers for companions, professional opportunities she hopes to take advantage of, should there ever be an opportunity, locations she wants to travel to, and the names of museums, cathedrals, coffee shops, hiking trails, beaches, and breweries she plans to visit if she ever gets there. Clothing items kept in online carts she wishes to buy someday. The traits of men she's liked in the past, simply to keep track of what she might desire in a future partner if it ever comes to that. The names of flowers, too, as well as all the things her family should have said to her after the divorce instead of what they said, and the ways she'd like to be remembered by loved ones at her funeral. Sometimes she lays out the dress, the shoes, the hair comb, and jewelry she wants to wear into an afterlife, a list in the shape of a body on the seldom used guest bed. The optimist doesn't wash her hair. To be honest, she thinks about death often. Each time a leaf falls, a bell rings, the sky clouds over but does not rain. They call it a plague, And now she wishes someone had listened when she told them her story, most of it about conservation. For instance, going nowhere, she decides to shower daily but not wash her hair to save shampoo and avoid the damaging rigors of washing. There are so many ways to be violent when trying not to be violent. Last month, she reads, there were 4,000 suicides in this country alone. These facts keep her mind busy. At the University of Michigan, NODA was created to ensure everyone died with someone at their bedside. When her grandmother departed several years ago, a granddaughter was with her, just one. A veteran in Portland, Maine is working out his traumas with poetry she reads after his wife has left him. A little boy clinging to his arm in a photo puts her mind at ease. How convenient her apartment when out there, the dying. How American avoidance. Realities we don't have to believe because they are unseen. How lucky is a universe not biblical in its workings. If a death angel passed by our doorpost looking for blood, he'd find plenty. On the bath towels, the kitchen towels, the bed sheets, the floor. The optimist leaves a dead spider dead on the carpet. There's still so much to do: laundry, emails, books to sort and arrange. The car hasn't been cleaned in months. And then there's the shower, dear God. She Googles fun things to do in West Idaho. It's hard not to get distracted. For instance, there's sun outside signaling impulses she's forced to keep at bay. It might be better if it rained for the next 30 days. A siren whirs in the distance, a dog starts barking, hysterically, birds flutter into a nearby tree and scurry skyward like frightened banshee. From underneath her coffee table, a lone spider plans a route of escape. Quarantine is difficult for all sorts of creatures. At dusk, when shadows brush the carpet, a semi-cloudy gray, he leaps out from under, swimming over its follicles, but not fast enough. His smushed dot remains on the carpet for over 3 days. This feels like a feeling, even though it isn't, and this feeling seems innocent enough. The optimist wants to ask a question. Scrolling through her Facebook feed is like walking through a minefield of doctor this and politician that. She stifles a desire to know all the answers because everyone has come to a conclusion, and if nothing else, history has certainly divulged the dangers of rightness, deadly. Hence, it seems, our present moment. Hence the photos she posts of the state park she visited on Sunday, spacious landscape of dune sand and pine. There she roamed the unbeaten path, burrowed the earth, and listened to the rhythm of a lake that has known its own invasion, microbes feasting on healthy bacteria living off its energy, taking it away, sometimes man gutting and wasting. She finds a plastic bottle rested against a dried piece of wood and resists the inclination to touch it, turns her body back to the heartbeat of water, buries her hand in beach sand. The optimist buys an expensive bottle of wine. Most days, she prefers a glass of blush. She loves an afternoon siesta. Nothing has changed much now, except that it feels beautiful to hold a delicate glass vessel in her hand. Yesterday at the grocery store, she opted for a vintage a bit pricier because the label was pretty, a farmhouse inked into a fruitful backdrop, gold gilded and muted in time. She pours the deep purple liquid into her slim ally, turns on the radio, leans back, the juice smooth in her throat, sweet but subtle. Someone is dying this way today, head against a pillow, eyes drawn shut, siesta. She didn't even need to buy the new bottle. Her wine rack is full. But she read on the internet that the virus is killing even the young. So she went shopping, groped red peppers in the produce section, long enough to see if he was still there working, the grocer in his late 20s, before choosing one. He was. As usual, he looked up when he sensed her, lingering briefly. Someday, when the virus is over, she'll ask him for his number and a name. The optimist scrambles 4 eggs for breakfast, then realizes this is too much, but eats them anyway. In North Carolina, the death toll is 507, but no one is talking about North Carolina, and she wonders what it's like not to be talked about much. It's May now, cherry trees outside her window in full bloom. Someone will not outlive this second that she lifts her fork to face. She imagines their loss of fresh eggs and coffee, the sound of sizzling in a pan, and Alanis Morissette, the eucalyptus candle mixed with burning sage incense scent. This is a perfect sort of morning, a Saturday with no definite plans. She lets the music forgive her for wanting to be transported to someone in the future, to sometime in the future when everyone has taught themselves to necessarily forget. She hopes this won't be a casualty for chickens, each egg dropped into a bucket, once again, less sacred. Each morning's chance to thank a gracious someone sped through carelessly anew. The Optimist rereads Mary Oliver's Dog Songs. The experts say another month indoors and maybe longer before the worst of the virus is over. She's been expecting to hear of someone she knows dying but hasn't. She listens for her plants to understand their conversation with this tepid Thursday afternoon when the sun is hidden from view. Or is it Friday? Whatever happened to excitement for the weekend? Cracking open a bottle of craft beer she's been saving for a special occasion, she decides this is a special occasion, a possibly the weekend, but who knows party. She raises her beer to her favorite philodendron, embracing the possible, declaring sarcastically, we're not dead yet. Each moment that slips by seems apocalyptic, but not apocalyptic. The birds chirping tunes the way they always do in May. It's a little rainy, but this is quite normal, and some buds are starting to bloom on command. In the apartment above her, a violinist practices as usual, though perhaps a little longer. She pulls a book of poems off a shelf. Percy is running, digging holes in the sand. The Optimist celebrates Mother's Day. First a cup of coffee, then the birds, now a single white rose perched in a vase. Her daughter makes carrot cake and visits for 2 days. She snuggles in her favorite chair, blanket wrapped, and listens to chatter outside and inside, her daughter full of speech, music, a note in a card to tell her of a mother's strength, so much admiration. For years, she's been waiting for magic, for life to happen in some surprisingly beautiful way. The frosting is homemade. She heats a kettle of water for Moroccan mint tea, then sits beside her daughter on a kitchen bar stool. The death toll is receding in her county, the serene May day. They sip and nibble together, talking about the future, together, like sisters, essential. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for reading. And it's always so wonderful to hear out loud what you've been reading and editing and working on for so long. It's wonderful to hear what it's supposed to sound like. Thank you everyone who has watched or will watch. And I want to invite you to please stay on top of our social media because we have more books coming out in June. Thank you all again.